STEM education has been a part of the educational vocabulary for quite some time. The following speaker will take us through the role of STEM education in VPET. Professor Lord Kumar Bhattacharya, Chairman and Founder of Warwick Manufacturing Group, WMG.
Lord Bhattacharya has made WMG a global force in applied engineering by building long-term partnerships between leading manufacturers and academic researchers.
He has also published extensively in the field of manufacturing and is an advisor to many governments and global businesses. Please welcome Lord Bhattacharya.
Good morning. It's really a pleasure to be back in Hong Kong. This morning when I was talking to my friends here, they reminded me that it was the 52nd time that I've been in Hong Kong. Hong Kong has a worldwide reputation for combining excellence in scientific and technical education with relevance in industry. Scientific and technical education is fairly well developed in the advanced nations, and even in the underdeveloped countries it's growing and growing very fast. So Hong Kong is a fitting location for this conference and to host worldwide skills again. Bringing the rigor of academic science with the purpose of industry and business has been my passion since I came to Britain as a young man, many decades ago. I moved from an elite engineering college from India at the Indian Institute of Technology and did my apprenticeship in Birmingham, the industrial heart of Britain. And it was a bit of a culture shock in all sorts of ways. Now, I have earned, and I had earned my qualifications in science and engineering at school and university. But it was my vocational education that made me an engineer. An engineer can only survive if he can apply the knowledge that he has had. But that is a fuzzy part. You can have the best knowledge, but if you cannot apply it, then there's no point of being an engineer. It was in those workshops that while I was learning how to solve a problem, that I realized that to motivate a team was a great challenge, and it made me passionate about using science to make a difference. You know, in the 60s, the speed at which science was changing, the way technology was moving into industry, ruined many countries and built many countries. So the purpose of vocational education isn't a qualification or a job. It's about seeing the impact you make. It's about creating a new product, finding a new way of doing things, making lives better. Yet even as I enjoyed the difference I made, I saw opportunities lost. In Britain, I saw workers and managers unprepared to handle changes that I knew were coming, whether computers, new materials, lean processes, or new competitors that were coming from the East. Bear this in mind, this was in the 60s. And one of the greatest problems at that time is the rate of change in the Western world that was taking place, especially after the war, when Germany was reinvesting because of Marshall Aid, Japan was reinvesting again because of Marshall Aid. It was a it was a tremendous time for change where new industries developed from nowhere. And that's how actually one can see the danger of technology if you don't keep in touch. And my apprenticeship in Birmingham showed me how much talent and experience existed on the factory floor and in classrooms. And it taught me how much of that talent was wasted. I realized that business leaders who truly understand the opportunities scientific advance created were very few. Industry needed managers with the guts to embrace change and invest for the long-haul unknown rather than seeking shelter from problems by just cutting costs and padding margins. The leaders you see today are predominantly in that particular regime. But real leaders require bravery. They confront challenges rather than hide from them. I was inspired by working with these leaders and many others. I spent my career as an advocate of STEM vocational education at every level. I founded Warwick Manufacturing Group 37 years ago because of, at that time, my Prime Minister, Mrs. Thatcher, for whom I worked, said what we should do in UK is set up a particular center which will work with industry, increase the GDP, and make sure that one can be competitive. Other than that, any education in vocation, especially in my area, is useless. You have to have a purpose in the end. Workplace learning and technical education are the very core of my group's purpose. Here in Hong Kong, we found some of our earliest and strongest allies, men and women who shared that vision. It's now 25 years since WMG launched our integrated graduate development scheme with our friends from Hong Kong, Polytechnic University, and 12 Hong Kong companies. We built long-term partnerships so employers could be sure their staff would learn useful lessons and technical skills. We offered premier qualifications so employees knew that technical education in Warwick would boost their career anywhere in the world. I like to think that the astonishing success of Hong Kong has been exceeded only by the careers of those who studied and worked with us. I'm proud, of course, of the role played in developing industrial leaders, just as that Alex Chang, Roy Chung of Tektronix, and Wu Tat Lun, my pronunciation. They are all leaders here which we created and which we developed over a period of time. What's more gratifying is these leaders became major supporters of vocational and technical education, whether as mentors of students in their businesses or as council members of the VTC. Their legacy can be found in Hong Kong, whether in the new STEM centers VTC opened last month, or scholarships by them in the progress the government has made on Roy Chung's task force on promoting vocational education. And of course, our partnership have expanded into mainland China with our graduate and master's programs there. For 30 years, Hong Kong has pursued a consistent industry-focused technical education program with a clear strategy of building the level and quality of vocational education. But you know, things are changing so fast because of the speed at which China is developing that Hong Kong also has to change. Britain, on the other hand, had a problem. Britain allowed where STEM was basically at the root of the first industrial development in Britain, somehow forgot. But vocational training was of little value, but any teachers know that sometimes you need to make mistakes to learn from them. And I think when you look at what has happened in Britain, you can really understand this. And we have been campaigning on these issues for many years. It's sometimes hard going. As our election in Britain, we don't have the benefits of stable, clear leadership all the time. But in vocational and STEM education, at least, Britain's finally learning the lessons the world has to teach us. We are finally bringing back employer-funded apprenticeships. Because if the market doesn't actually participate and expect the government and the non-government organizations to do these things, it'll never work. The employers have to pay. And it's only then that they use it. So we decided finally to bring back employer-funded apprenticeships, which went through Parliament last year. We are trying to build post-secondary technical educations. We are strengthening industrial partnership in education at all levels, even when you're doing your doctorate in Britain, and in Germany for that matter. One is building and developing industry-led doctorates and undergraduate programs. So despite very different economic histories, varying levels of recent success in STEM and vocational education, and contrasting stability of strategy, Britain and Hong Kong face at heart the same challenges. In Britain, 2/3 of the future jobs will be in the technician's grade. In France, it's exactly the same. In Germany, it'll be exactly the same. In China, despite the huge strides made in technical education, demand for technicians will soon exceed supply by 24 million. And the truth is, the approach we need to take is the same. We need a STEM educational system that puts work first. Only last week, when I had the party leader from China to visit us to find out how we worked, because we have signed many agreements with China, they were gobsmacked. They were saying, we have now achieved a level of success in China, but the future will depend on the skill base that we require for the newer technologies so that they can compete in the world in a level playing field. So having decided to put work at the heart of STEM education, the core reason is that it'll make the world a fairer, more prosperous place. Wherever you are in the world, whatever your business, STEM skills are crucial for raising productivity. Meeting the STEM challenge has many aspects. For some, it's a question of reducing skills mismatch. As technology changes and the speed of change is so great, old skills become irrelevant and the new ones essential to acquire. There's no point in having all these government and non-government organizations, it's all talk, because unless the market pays for it, you will never succeed. For others, there's a vast pool of untapped talent who lack useful skills, whether this is due to youth or migration or education or gender. But whatever the cause, our friends at the OECD produce studies that demonstrate what we should know instinctively. Those with lower skills have to work harder, get paid less, and achieve comparatively little. That's a recipe for injustice, dissatisfaction, and frustration in our societies. This is precisely what happened in the election in Holland and the election that happened only in the last week in UK. So technical skills are not merely needed to fill jobs or to build value. They are crucial if we are to give people a sense of worth. The task is complicated by the speed of change and the complexity of the modern world. Which skills will be needed and where and at what level is a big problem. These are questions as many different answers, with as many different answers as there are regions industries, new technologies, and scientific advances. There can be no one right answer, no global mantra, no one-size-fits-all approach, nor can successful economies stand still. Technological advances will always demand new skills. It's a continuum. I often think that skills provision has been in crisis since the Industrial Revolution. That's how it should be. Without change, we would be stagnating. Let me put it this way. The task is not to find the perfect solution to the current skills crisis. It is to anticipate and adapt to the next skills crisis better than anyone else. And if you look at what happened in Japan after the war and what happened in the 80s, 60s, 70s, and the 80s, that's what they did, nothing else. And that is also what's happening now to some extent in China. It is this process of anticipation and adaptation that should define our approach to STEM education in this incredibly complex, varied world. Whether we're better to anticipate and adapt to changing skill challenges than in the workplace, whether it's a data center or an advanced manufacturing facility in public service or a private research laboratory. Real benefits from STEM skills can only be delivered through sustained partnership and collaboration with industry. That means solutions have to be tailored, not universal. You will need the skills to suit your industries, your resources, and your current capabilities. And it must be a continuum. It has to change continuously. You need to invest in researchers, technicians, and managers in different sectors and at different levels. There's no point replicating German policy if you don't have the engineering industry Germany has. Everybody will say, well, let's do what's happening in Germany. Let's do what's happening in Japan. You can't do that because they have a certain economic criteria for that to happen. There is no point relying on American-style innovation if you don't have the capital markets and innovation ecosystems that incubate and protect these entrepreneurs. If you have 10 million school leavers without qualification, is an R&D hub a better use of funds than engineering boot camps? This is not a question I can answer or a minister can know. It's a challenge industry must meet. So there is no mantra for success. But there is a unifying principle to guide us. It is to put work first. This is what has guided us since our foundation. We involve employers early, right at the beginning of everything we do. We look at their challenges, their needs, their potential. We seek long-term partners, not customers. We ask for engagement and commitment and, yes, investment. We put real business challenges first and engage with industry on anything from schools to advanced research. We do this for a simple reason, to make firms confident that it's worthwhile investing their money in people who might never work at their company. And by doing that, we ensure our STEM education stays relevant and work-focused at every level, so students want to come to us. But let me tell you this is not just in manufacturing. We are doing the same thing in health because treatment is changing so fast. Treatment is becoming more and more technological, and so you have to move from one sector to another sector. A lot of people said, why have you developed my Institute of Digital Health? That's because there's a lot of similarity between manufacturing and health. It's all driven by technology, and that's where the future is. From this, it follows that business has to put their hand in their pocket. There is no point business crying about a lack of good technical education if they aren't prepared to invest in their success. Fortunately, our experience at WMG is that when you engage with business at every level of technical STEM education, the best firms rise to the challenge and exceed your expectations. Here is a practical example. At WMG, we lead the Jaguar Land Rover Academy for Lifelong Learning. And we are training each year more than 2,000 people. And then in addition, there's a spin out on suppliers whereby we end up training 30,000 people a year in that area. And majority of them judge their expenditure on the basis of improving their productivity. The Academy integrates every level of training from the first year apprentice to doctoral dissertation into one structure, open to anybody that wants to improve themselves. For example, higher apprentices can earn an engineering degree from my university through WMG's Applied Engineering Program. The JLR Academy also gives those apprentices the chance to do a doctorate during their career. There are no such qualifications of value, not least as their CEO, Ralph Peth, earned his doctorate the same way. That's, to some extent, depends on the partnership you create and the trust that you create in the way you teach, what you teach, and how quickly you can adapt. See, another thing is, a major skills program like this works well for larger employers. But what about the backbone of the economy, the small and medium-sized firms? At WMG, we work with many SMEs who want to develop their staff but can only offer high-value qualifications when they know their abilities of the workforce will grow in future. Is it worth spending the money? So, our partnerships start early. It doesn't begin when someone joins a company or end when they leave it. At WMG, we started not one, but we have also started our schools. We call them WMG Academy for Young Engineers. And that's completely new in the way we take young people at the age of 14 and make sure that there is work for them, make sure that there is facilities for them so that they can improve the productivity of their companies whenever they go, wherever they go. This gives 14-year-olds who want a head start in STEM subjects the chance to learn workplace skills. And it gives smaller businesses the opportunity to work with motivated young people from their local area. At the other end of the spectrum, we are working with the latest technical advances with the entire automotive sector or aerospace sector. Postdoctoral degree, advanced research on materials, batteries, digital engineering, cryptography, etc. Because there's no point in saying, oh, we will do your apprentice the same way as it was done 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Things move so fast that you, the people who teach, the people who are giving them the experience, have also got to learn how quickly things are changing. You see. We are taking researchers from industry, putting them together with academics, and challenging them to go further. This is advanced research carried out in partnership with some of the world's most technically sophisticated business, wherever they are. We work with many, many big companies in America, Europe, China, and many other places, and even in India. We're also recruiting engineers from industry, both at our academy and at the university, because the idea of engineering at a distance from the world of work is contradiction in terms. You know, you cannot teach somebody on some book knowledge on this and that, because it won't work. They won't be able to improve their productivity straight away. So even when somebody ends their industrial career, their talent and expertise can be put in good use, passed on to the next generation of technicians, engineers, and scientists. This is needed for people in work too. After the global economic crisis, in-work training dropped off significantly across the West, as you can see. That means that across the West, people like Chow Yat Fat, who took his degree in Hong Kong, while working as a clerk are now losing the chance to improve their skills and their lives. This is what we must also change. As the Global STEM Alliance says, no longer can the educational system be defined as just schools and universities, but must also incorporate learning from our elders, the real-world problems, and hands-on practice in the workplace. This is no new insight. The STEM Alliance rightly points out to Germany's 100-year-old dual system of vocational education as a model. But the importance of vocational training, learning needs to be asserted because it's the heart of what education is for. I make this point because making progress on STEM education requires that we address the cultural change that surrounds vocational and technical learning. There is always a divide between vocational training and academic training, and that has to collapse. And it's happening in most countries, whether we are designing courses with industry or recruiting teachers from industry. The cultural barrier makes the flow of ideas and talent harder. I sometimes smile when I hear accountants, lawyers, doctors, and academics discuss vocational education as if it didn't include the courses they took at university. But that might be 30 years ago, 50 years ago. So a quick reminder of the heritage of vocational education. The word apprentice comes from the Latin to learn. It was first heard 1,000 years ago, so has a longer educational heritage than any other modern educational concept. Vocation, it comes from the Latin for profession, calling. It was first used for the priests and legal scholars who founded every single ancient university in the Western world. Indeed, the first Western university, Bologna, owed its existence to the vocational need for qualified lawyers. The difference between vocational education and professional qualification is in our attitude to them. That's all. In China, the great artificious recorder, Ho Kung Chai, puts it brilliantly. It says, tools and machines were invented by men of wit, and their traditions maintained by men of skill. And that metal melted to make swords, clay hardened to make vessels, chariots going on land and boats for crossing water, all these arts were the work of the sages. Today, too, we need men of wit and men of skill. The only difference is we know we need women of wit and women of skill too. Women like Chelsea Lau, who has gone from Lee Technical Institute student to being, according to Auto Week magazine, one of the top 10 secret people who will change your world in her role as a global designer for Ford. When we celebrate the inheritance of vocational education as the work of the sages, its universal appeal is evident. It's of value to all, whatever their barriers of age, experience, prejudice, or expectation you face. The power of vocational STEM education lies in the promise that wherever we start, whatever our background, we can all be one of the men or women of skill. To achieve this goal, we need more than just pride in our past. We need to take concrete, practical action to build the future. Some of this is literally concrete and building. Both businesses and government must invest in the institutions, facilities, and workshops that teach practical skills. But we also need to create an ecosystem of technical education. History shows us that whether it was the imperial workshops of dynastic China or the cauldron of the Industrial Revolution of Britain, it takes more than just resources to create strong skills. You need a framework in which people can grow. This means creating a clear link between qualifications and career progress, from the most simple skills right up to the most advanced research. To take an example, Chris Tomazu, who left school with no qualifications and went on to take a vocational electrician's course. From that opportunity, he has become a Regius Professor of Electrical Engineering and created several multi-million-dollar businesses. Not everybody will be able to take that path, but it needs that everybody has that ambition so that success is also possible to them. So vocational education needs high standards at every level with support to help students move to the next level, either in their career or in their qualifications. In turn, that means businesses who set the standards needed for the progress and invest in creating these opportunities should always be there. These are real challenges in business in investing in that way. After all, it's an expense with an uncertain reward in the future. That's why government needs to attract and act to prevent free riding. We can do this through levy systems. And now this is going everywhere. Everywhere in the world, they are now developing levy systems, or by supporting sectorial institutions, or by encouraging innovative forms of education, such as online courses, modular education, which reduce the perceived cost. We can even make supporting technical education a condition for accessing other forms of state support. There's no single right way. But at the heart of the approach is a simple principle. We can only truly offer an education that focuses on work when employers are willing to contribute their time and money. It's no good trying to offer vocational education if all of you is a bad, outdated copy of the vocation you are trying to teach. If you go and look at the vocational education system, they have got their notes done 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and that's what you're teaching. So industry has to be in the heart of course design. Industry has to be in the driving seat. But you can't be in the driving seat if you don't pay for the journey. Business has to pay for technical and vocational STEM education, not just because it improves the performance, but because the contribution of business, whether in time or money, actually increases the value of the education they get. So what is the mission when it comes down to this? We need to value the vocational and technical education on its own terms, for the skill it gives, the talent it liberates, the opportunity it creates. And business needs to value those skills and that talent much more by investing in creating a culture of opportunity for those with vocational and technical STEM education. There is no one route forward, no single path to success. And if you now look at majority of the big companies, majority of the successful companies, and majority of the companies that are there today in the advanced Western world, is that technical education and skills are at the heart of their strategy, because they know if they don't do that, they won't survive. Thank you.